Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Before we start today's story, we would like to request you to help out our friend's new channel Timeless Audio Tales, where he puts together some amazing stories. The link is in the description box, so please visit the channel and hit the subscribe button. Now let's start with today's story. I still have trouble wrapping my head around it sometimes. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Lisa, and I are technically still married, but only because of the legal system. Where we live, you have to be separated for 12 months before you can actually get divorced, which honestly just feels like dragging out the inevitable at this point. During this so-called cooling-off period, she was supposed to find her own place nearby to make 50-50 custody of our 3 kids easier. Why are we getting divorced? Well, Lisa's twin sister, Sarah, came up with this brilliant idea that Lisa should be their surrogate. Sarah and her husband, Kevin, have apparently been struggling to have kids. I get it. That sucks for them. But instead of, I don't know, using a regular surrogate or adoption or literally any other option, they decided that because Sarah and Lisa are twins, Lisa was the perfect choice to carry their baby. The worst part? I didn't even find out about this plan until way later. Turns out, this had been in the works for weeks before I even caught a whiff of it. It wasn't like they sat down with me to have a proper conversation. No, that would have been too logical. Instead, Lisa just kind of casually mentioned it to me one night like it was no big deal. I remember exactly how it went down. We were sitting on the couch, and she just came out with it. So, I've been thinking about doing something really important for Sarah, she said, scrolling on her phone like we were just talking about what to have for dinner. Yeah? I glanced at her. What kind of important thing? She finally looked up. I'm going to be her surrogate. At first, I thought she was joking. I let out this half laugh, waiting for the punchline. But she just kept looking at me like she was expecting me to be happy about it. Wait, what? I sat up straighter. Like, you're going to carry their baby? She nodded, smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, Sarah and Kevin have been trying for so long. And since we're identical twins, it's practically like Sarah's carrying her own child. My stomach sank. Lisa, are you serious? When did this even come up? She shrugged. A few weeks ago. We've been talking about it for a while. I stared at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. And you didn't think to mention it to me? Lisa sighed, setting her phone down. Grant, this isn't about you. It's my body, my choice. I don't need permission. Permission? Lisa, we're married. This is a huge decision, one that affects both of us. How could you not talk to me about this first? She rolled her eyes. I'm telling you now. Oh, great. Now, after you've already made up your mind. That's not how marriage works. Her expression hardened. Look, I knew you'd react like this. That's why I waited. But this is happening, Grant. Whether you support me or not. I let out a breath, shaking my head. So that's it. Either I get on board, or what? She crossed her arms. Or maybe we should rethink things. And there it was. The ultimatum. She didn't say it outright, but the message was clear. Get on board or get out. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't just the surrogacy itself that bothered me, though, yeah, that was a huge part of it. It was the fact that this had all been planned behind my back. Lisa, Sarah, and Kevin had been scheming this whole thing for weeks, maybe even months, without even giving me a heads up. And now, I was just supposed to be cool with it? I looked at her for a long moment. If you go through with this, we're done. Her face twisted with frustration. You're being so unreasonable. I laughed, but it wasn't out of amusement. I'm being unreasonable? Lisa, you're literally making a life-altering decision without even considering me. You don't think that's a problem? She shook her head, exasperated. I'm doing something beautiful for my sister. I thought you'd understand. I stood up, running a hand through my hair. Yeah, well, I guess I don't. Fast forward a few months, and guess what? She's pregnant. When Lisa told me, I just nodded and said, okay, then walked out of the room. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. I had this drafted the same week that my wife told me about her plans. I just waited for her to act on her plans. Apparently, this shocked everyone. Lisa acted like she didn't see it coming, which honestly blows my mind. Like, did she think I was bluffing? That I'd just magically get over it and be okay with my wife being pregnant by someone else's kid? I told her exactly what would happen if she went through with this. And now she had the nerve to act surprised? Sarah and Kevin weren't any better. They tried guilt-tripping me into staying, throwing every cliché in the book at me. You're abandoning your wife, Sarah said, shaking her head like I was some heartless monster. She needs your support now more than ever. I let out a bitter laugh. She's the one who made this choice. Not me. Kevin, always the diplomat, tried to soften the blow. Grant, this is a beautiful thing she's doing for us. Don't you see that? Oh, I see it, I said, crossing my arms. I see that you two wanted a baby, and Lisa decided to carry it. Without even talking to me first. That's not a marriage. That's not a partnership. That's just a decision she made, and now she gets to deal with the consequences. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You vowed to stand by her, no matter what. And she vowed to respect me and not make life-changing decisions behind my back. I shot back. So here we are. And that was that. I filed the paperwork, and the separation officially began. At first, Lisa acted like she didn't care. She kept that same self-righteous attitude, like she was above it all. I don't need you, she said one night after I told her I was done discussing it. I can handle this on my own. Great, I said. Then do that. But as the months passed, reality started catching up to her. Suddenly, she wasn't as confident. She wasn't as in control. After I filed for divorce, the tension in the house became unbearable. Lisa started acting like nothing had changed, like I was still supposed to care about her pregnancy, or, worse, like I should be involved in it somehow. Meanwhile, I had already mentally checked out. Why would I invest energy into a pregnancy that wasn't mine? A pregnancy that was the exact reason we were splitting up? She didn't move out, of course. Finding a place in our area wasn't easy, especially not while pregnant. She kept saying she wanted to stay close for the kids' sake. But let's be real, it was more about convenience for her. Every time she needed something, she still expected me to act like her husband. One night, she walked into the living room where I was watching TV. Can you run to the store for me? I didn't even look away from the screen. For what? Pickles. And maybe some ice cream. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, that's not my job anymore. She sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Grant, come on. It's just a quick trip. I finally turned to face her. Lisa, I'm not your husband anymore. Go ask Sarah or Kevin to do it. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she turned and walked away. As the weeks went on, she started dropping more and more hints about how hard everything was. How stressful it was. How much she had to do alone. At first, I just ignored her. I mean, what did she expect? That I was going to swoop in and save the day like I had during her previous pregnancies? Those were our kids. This was entirely her and her sister's decision. I didn't sign up for any of it. Eventually, the hints turned into outright complaints. I don't know how I'm going to do this without you, she said one evening, rubbing her belly like that would somehow make me care. I barely glanced up from my laptop. Call Sarah. Call Kevin. She let out a frustrated sigh. It's not fair that I have to go through this alone. I closed my laptop and looked at her. Fair? You really want to talk about fair? Because I don't think it was fair to make this decision without me. But here we are. She didn't have an answer for that. Just pursed her lips and looked away. I kept telling her the same thing. Sarah and Kevin were the ones who wanted this baby. They were the ones who made all these promises about how amazing this surrogacy journey would be. Let them step up. But of course, they were nowhere to be found most of the time. Kevin, in particular, seemed to be checking out of the whole situation. He showed up for the big stuff, doctor's appointments, the occasional baby-related errand, but day-to-day, missing in action. One night, out of pure curiosity, I asked Lisa, where's Kevin been lately? Thought he was supposed to be all in on this. He's been taking care of Sarah, she said, shifting uncomfortably. She's still recovering from her car accident. Fair enough, I admitted. But it's not like he didn't know this baby was coming. Shouldn't he have planned for this? Lisa's expression tightened. He's doing his best. He's under a lot of stress right now. I scoffed. Yeah? And you're not? She didn't answer, but that was enough for me. She didn't want to admit it, but Kevin's priorities had clearly shifted. He had an easy out, and he was taking it. Meanwhile, Lisa was leaning harder and harder on me, as if I was somehow obligated to pick up the slack. She started asking for little favors, carrying groceries, setting up the crib, even rubbing her back when she was sore. Every single time, I shut her down. Grant, can you help me with this? Nope. Not my kid, not my problem. One night, things finally came to a head. She was sitting on the couch, rubbing her belly and sighing dramatically, clearly trying to get my attention. I ignored her as long as I could, but eventually, she spoke. You know, she said, her voice laced with irritation, you're still my husband. You could at least pretend to care. That was it. I snapped. No, I'm not your husband anymore. Not in any way that matters, I said, standing up. You made your choice when you decided to do this behind my back. Don't come to me now because you're realizing it's harder than you thought. Call Kevin. Call Sarah. Call literally anyone else. But leave me out of it. Her face crumpled, and just like that, the waterworks started. That had become her go-to reaction whenever things didn't go her way. But at this point, I was immune to it. I'm going to bed, I said flatly, walking away as she sat there sobbing on the couch. The next few weeks were more of the same. She kept trying to guilt me into helping, and I shut her down every time. It wasn't just about setting boundaries for myself, though that was a big part of it. It was also about principle. If I started helping now, even a little, Lisa would take it as a sign that I was softening. And then I'd never be able to get out from under her demands. Things took another turn when the baby was born. I stayed out of it completely, didn't go to the hospital, didn't visit, nothing. I had told her ahead of time that I wouldn't be involved, so it wasn't like she didn't know. Still, she called me from the hospital, crying and begging me to come. "Grant, please. I don't want to do this alone," she sobbed into the phone. "I'm scared." I kept my voice calm, firm. "You decided to get screwed by a man who was not your husband. That decision was made by you alone, so don't drag me in this. Kevin put that baby in you, better call him." She let out a shaky breath. I did. "He's not picking up." "Then call Sarah. Call your mother. This is their problem, not mine." "You're being cruel," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. I sighed. "No, Lisa. I'm keeping my word. You knew where I stood before any of this happened." She didn't respond. A second later, the line went dead. When she came home with the baby, that's when the real chaos started. It was like she thought that bringing the baby into the house would magically make me care. Spoiler, it didn't. She started leaving baby things all over the place. Bottles in the kitchen, diapers on the couch, like some kind of psychological warfare tactic to force me into acknowledging it. But I didn't bite. I just stepped over the mess and went about my day. At night, it was even worse. The baby would cry, and she'd come knocking on my door. "Grant, please, just this once. Can you help?" She pleaded, her voice exhausted. "No." She let out a frustrated huff. "For God's sake, it's 3 in the morning. I haven't slept in days. Your baby your problem, now go deal with it." I didn't even get out of bed. Not my kid, not my problem. There was a long silence, and then I heard her stomp off down the hall. The next day, she slammed cabinets and muttered under her breath about what a terrible person I was. I'll admit, there were moments when I felt a twinge of guilt. Not because I thought I was wrong, but because the baby was innocent in all of this. It wasn't the kids' fault that their parents were a mess. But at the same time, I knew that stepping in wouldn't actually help the situation. It would just enable Lisa to keep relying on me instead of the people who actually wanted this baby in the first place. The final straw came when Lisa outright demanded that I take a more active role. "You can't just pretend this isn't happening," she snapped one evening, standing in front of me with the baby in her arms. "It's not fair that I'm doing everything on my own." I barely looked up from my laptop. "Then call Kevin." I did. "He's busy with Sarah, again." I shrugged. "Not my baby, not my problem." Her eyes blazed. "You are so goddamn selfish. You owe me this much." That got my attention. I set my laptop aside and met her glare head on. "I don't owe you anything," I said flatly. "You are behaving like I cheated on you," she screamed. I stood up and said, "I don't care if you slept with your child's father or if you cheated. You disrespected me by getting pregnant by another man. I warned you. I was against it, and there will be consequences. You claimed that it was your body, your choice. Now, it is my life and my choice. This is your responsibility. Deal with it." That was it. That was the moment she finally broke. "You're a heartless monster," she spat. "One day, you're going to regret this." She stormed off, and for a second, I thought that was the end of it. But then, an hour later, she reappeared, a bag slung over her shoulder and the baby bundled up in her arms. "I can't do this," she said, her voice shaking. "Not with you acting like this." I just nodded. She stared at me for a long moment, waiting, like she thought I might try to stop her. I didn't. 2 days later, Lisa left with the baby. I thought, finally, this might actually be the break I need. I wasn't naive enough to believe she was gone for good, but for a couple of days, the house was quiet. No crying baby, no guilt trips, no arguments. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. But of course, nothing ever stays simple when Lisa is involved. The call started the next morning. First from her mom, then her sister. Yes, the same sister who masterminded this whole mess, and even her sister's husband. It was like they had coordinated a campaign to wear me down. Every single one of them had the same talking points. Lisa was overwhelmed, the baby was innocent, and I needed to step up for the sake of the family. Sarah, her twin sister, was especially relentless. She left a long voicemail, dripping with condescension. "I cannot believe how heartless you are, Grant," she said, her voice sharp. "Lisa just gave birth, and you abandoned her at the most vulnerable time of her life. Is this really who you are? Do you even have a soul?" I scoffed and deleted the message without responding. What was the point? This wasn't some surprise pregnancy that we had both signed up for. This was Lisa's choice, a choice she made without consulting me, and a choice I explicitly told her I wouldn't support. Then there was Kevin, the baby's biological father. He tried to play the sympathy card, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. "Man, things are really tough right now," he said over the phone. "Sarah's still recovering from the accident, and Lisa's struggling. We're all family, man. We should be supporting each other." I nearly laughed at the audacity. "Family?" I repeated, incredulous. "Are you joking? You barely lifted a finger during the pregnancy, and now you want to act like we're some kind of team? That's not fair," he protested. "I'm trying. Try harder," I cut him off. This isn't my problem. Step up and take care of your own kid. Then there was Lisa's mom. She's usually pretty reasonable, but even she was on Lisa's side this time. When she called, her voice was heavy with disappointment. I just don't understand you, Grant, she said. Lisa is still your wife, and you. No, she's not, I interrupted. My voice was calm, but firm. She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to have another man's baby. If you care so much, maybe you should be the one helping her. Silence. Then a quiet click as she hung up. I think that's when it finally hit her. I wasn't going to cave. A couple of days later, Sarah came back. I knew she would eventually, but I wasn't prepared for the scene she brought with her. She walked in like she hadn't just called me every name under the sun before storming out. The baby was strapped to her chest in one of those carriers, her face exhausted but defiant. I could tell right away she was gearing up for another round. We need to talk, she said, standing in the middle of the living room like she was about to give a TED talk. I didn't even look up from what I was doing. About what? This. She gestured to the baby like I didn't already know what this was. You can't just ignore us forever. I'm not ignoring you, I said flatly. I've been very clear. This is your responsibility, not mine. That was all she needed to launch into another long-winded speech about how hard it was being a single mom, how unfair it was that she had to do everything on her own. She kept saying things like, "This isn't what I signed up for, and I never thought you'd turn your back on me like this." I sat there and let her talk. What was the point of arguing? She wasn't looking for a solution. She just wanted someone to blame. When she finally stopped, I met her gaze and said, "You signed up for this the moment you decided to carry their baby. Don't act like this is my fault." That set her off. She started yelling, her face twisted in frustration. "You're being cruel, Grant. You have no idea what I'm going through. You think this is easy for me? One day, you're going to regret this. I know you will." The baby started crying, probably because she was yelling so damn loud. She turned to me, snapping, "Are you just going to sit there? Do something." I shrugged. Not my baby, not my problem. Her face turned red, and she stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard it rattled the walls. The baby kept crying, but I didn't move. If she wanted to scream and slam doors, fine. But I wasn't about to let her dump her problems on me. That night, she tried a different tactic. Instead of yelling, she came into the kitchen while I was making dinner and played nice. She leaned against the counter, watching me cook, her voice softer, almost hesitant. "I miss the way things used to be," she said after a long silence. I kept chopping vegetables, not looking at her. "That makes one of us." She sighed, stepping closer. "I mean it, Grant. I still love you. I want us to be a family again." I scoffed. "A family?" I turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "This was a family. You threw that away." She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. "I made a mistake." I set the knife down and crossed my arms. "Yeah, you did." She nodded, then took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry." She even apologized, sort of. She said she was sorry for how things turned out, but she still didn't take any responsibility for her choices. I wasn't buying it. "That ship has sailed," I told her, my voice flat. "You made your decision. Now you have to live with it." She started crying again, her shoulders shaking as she choked out, "I don't want to get divorced. I can't do this on my own." I exhaled, already tired of the conversation. "You don't have to do it alone," I said. "You have Sarah and Kevin." But that wasn't what she wanted to hear. She didn't want their help. She wanted mine. She wanted me to swoop in and fix everything, just like I'd always done before. But not this time. I turned towards her and said, "You don't want a divorce, not because you love me. You got pregnant by a different man, despite my warnings. That tells me a lot about your love for me. You don't want a divorce because I give you a stable lifestyle. You just don't want to lose it. But take my advice, get used to being alone. Get used to dealing with your mess alone. The divorce has been filed, and there will soon be a time when this lifestyle will be lost." That night, when I went to bed, I could hear her crying in the next room. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. I felt nothing. And that's when I knew for sure it was over. Whatever love or connection we'd once had was gone. She'd burned it all to the ground with her choices. The next morning, she tried one last Hail Mary. She came to me, dark circles under her eyes, looking desperate, the baby in her arms. "Please," she whispered, voice raw. "Just hold her for a little while so I can sleep. I haven't had more than 2 hours in days." For a second, I almost caved. Almost. But then I thought about everything that had led up to this moment. How she'd lied. How she'd betrayed my trust. How she'd dragged me into a mess I never agreed to. "No," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "Call Kevin," I told her. "He's the father. He should be helping you." She looked like I had slapped her. Her lip trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You really hate me that much, don't you?" I shook my head. "I don't hate you," I said, voice steady. "But I'm not going to let you guilt me into cleaning up your mess. This isn't my responsibility, and I'm done pretending it is." She left again after that. And this time, I think it might be for good. Her mom called me later, saying Lisa was staying with her for now. I told her that was probably for the best. Maybe now, I could finally get some peace. 3 days after Lisa left the second time, things settled down, for a while. The house was quiet, sure, but it wasn't peaceful. There was this constant, nagging feeling that something else was coming. Like the calm before a storm. And I wasn't wrong. About a week after she moved out, the letters and emails started coming. Lisa's family, in full force. Not just the usual guilt trips and emotional manipulation. I was used to that, but full-on arguments. It was like they were trying to wear me down with sheer volume. Lisa's mom wrote me this long letter about how I was being unreasonable, how family always comes first, and how I needed to step up. She went on about how hard things had been for Lisa growing up, how much she had sacrificed, and how I owed it to her to support her now. I read it, sighed, and tossed it in the trash. What was I supposed to do with that? It wasn't like they were saying anything new. They'd been on this "you're the bad guy" train since the beginning, and at this point, it was just noise. Sarah and Kevin, on the other hand, took a more direct approach. Kevin showed up at my house, unannounced one evening. When I opened the door and saw him standing there looking all awkward, I knew this wasn't going to go well. "Hey, man," he said, trying to sound casual. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "About what?" He shifted uncomfortably, like he was debating whether to come in or just turn around and leave. Finally, he sighed. "About the baby. About everything, really." I didn't move. "Say what you need to say." He looked surprised, like he thought I'd actually invite him in. Not a chance. He started rambling, talking about how hard things had been for him since Sarah's accident, how he was trying to juggle everything, and how he really needed me to step up and help out. "For Lisa's sake," he added. "For Lisa's sake?" I repeated, cutting him off. My voice was sharp, and I saw him flinch. "This has nothing to do with me. That's your baby. Your wife's sister agreed to this knowing full well what it meant. Why are you even here?" He looked flustered. "It's not just about the baby. It's about family. We're all connected in this." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "No, we're not." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him continue. "You, Sarah, and Lisa decided all of this behind my back. You excluded me, and now you're acting like I owe you something? Get real." He tried to argue, but I wasn't having it. "Leave," I said, stepping back into the house. "And don't come back unless it's to take full responsibility for your kid." He didn't like that answer, but he didn't have much of a choice. He stood there for a moment, his jaw tightening, then muttered something about how I'd regret this before turning and walking away. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Either way, it's not my problem. Meanwhile, Lisa was still at her mom's, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she had started to figure things out. But nope. Instead, she started using the kids as leverage. One night, she called and asked if she could come over to spend time with them. I said sure, because they're still her kids, and I wasn't going to keep them from her. But when she showed up, it was obvious she had an agenda. She spent the whole evening talking about how hard things were for her, how the baby kept her up all night, and how she just needed a little help to get back on her feet. Then she dropped the real bomb. She brought up the idea of moving back in, just until she could figure things out. I shut that down immediately. "No," I told her flatly. "You made your choice. You don't get to come back here and act like nothing happened." She frowned, her eyes pleading. "Grant, it's not just about me. The kids need their mother." "They have their mother," I said. "You're still their mom, Lisa. But that doesn't mean I have to let you move back in." She exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated. "This isn't fair, to them, to me. You're keeping our family apart." I scoffed. "No, you did that. You chose to blow up our marriage for your sister. You don't get to play the victim here." That was the first time I saw real anger in her eyes. Up until then, it had mostly been sadness, guilt-tripping, and frustration. But this was different. She looked at me like I was the worst person on the planet. "You'll regret this one day," she hissed. "I promise you." Then she grabbed her stuff and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The weeks that followed were surprisingly uneventful. I settled into a routine with the kids, focusing on giving them as much stability as I could. They asked about their mom sometimes, why she wasn't living with us, why things were different. I kept my answers simple. "Mom and I are figuring things out," I'd say, "but we both love you very much." It wasn't exactly a lie. I still loved my kids more than anything, and I knew Lisa did too, in her own way. But that didn't change the fact that we were on completely different paths now. She had made her bed, and I wasn't about to climb into it with her. That said, I couldn't help but notice how much lighter I felt without her constant presence. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells or dealing with her drama. It was just me and the kids, figuring things out one day at a time. And honestly, it felt good. Then came the legal stuff. Divorce proceedings officially started, and that opened up a whole new can of worms. Lisa's lawyer tried to paint me as the unreasonable one, claiming I had abandoned her during a difficult time and refused to help with the baby. My lawyer countered with the facts. The baby wasn't mine. I had no obligation to help. And Lisa had made the decision to go through with the surrogacy despite my objections. It was messy, but I wasn't worried. The truth was on my side, and I had plenty of documentation to back it up. Texts, emails, even voicemails, I had it all. Every piece of evidence showed that Lisa knew exactly what she was doing, that I had been clear about my boundaries from the start. But even with the truth on my side, it was exhausting. Every time I thought I was done dealing with her drama, something new would pop up. Her family kept reaching out, trying to guilt me into making things right. Even Sarah and Kevin tried to mediate, as if they had any right to tell me how to handle my life. I ignored them all. I had spent enough time cleaning up Lisa's messes, and I wasn't about to start again. Through it all, one thing became crystal clear: I was done. Done with the guilt. Done with the manipulation. Done with the constant drama. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control of my own life again. And no matter how much Lisa and her family tried to pull me back in, I wasn't going to let them. This was my chance to start over, to rebuild, to focus on the things that really mattered: my kids, my own happiness, and a future where I wasn't constantly picking up the pieces of someone else's bad decisions. And for the first time in months, that future felt within reach. After weeks of back-and-forth drama, I finally got a taste of what my life might look like without Lisa's constant chaos. It wasn't perfect. I was still figuring out how to balance work, being there for my kids, and the ongoing mess of the divorce. But at least it felt like things were finally heading in the right direction. Lisa stayed with her mom for the most part, which made things a lot less tense around the house. She still had her visitation days with the kids, and while I wanted to keep the peace for their sake, it wasn't always smooth sailing. During one of her visits, the kids came back talking about the baby. My youngest, wide-eyed and curious, looked up at me and asked, "Is the baby gonna live with us someday?" I took a slow breath, choosing my words carefully. "No, Bud," I said gently. "The baby is staying with Aunt Sarah and Uncle Kevin." My oldest frowned. "But Mom said she had the baby. Doesn't that mean it's kinda like our little brother?" I rubbed the back of my neck. How do you explain surrogacy to kids? How do you make them understand that their mom's choices had nothing to do with them, without bad-mouthing her? "Mom helped bring the baby into the world," I explained, keeping my voice calm. "But it's different from when she had you guys. This baby isn't coming to live with us. He's part of Aunt Sarah and Uncle Kevin's family." My oldest nodded slowly, clearly trying to act like they understood, but I could see the gears turning in their head. My youngest, though, wasn't satisfied. "But why isn't the baby like us?" I hesitated, searching for a way to explain it in a way that made sense. "Because sometimes grown-ups make choices that are different from what we expect," I said carefully. "But no matter what, you and your sibling are what's important to me." They didn't press further, but I could tell the conversation stuck with them. It stuck with me too, for days. Meanwhile, I had my own life to sort out. The divorce wasn't just emotionally draining, it was financially draining, too. Lisa's lawyer was pushing for spousal support, arguing that she couldn't work because of the baby. "She made this choice," I said, exasperated, as I sat across from my lawyer in his office. "I didn't agree to any of this, and now she wants me to pay for it?" My lawyer nodded, flipping through the paperwork. "That's what they're pushing for, but we have a strong case. The baby isn't yours. This was a surrogacy agreement she willingly entered into. She has her sister and brother-in-law for support." It felt like no matter how many times I set boundaries, Lisa kept finding ways to try and pull me back in. She would call or text at random times, usually when she was in some kind of crisis, expecting me to drop everything and fix it. One afternoon, I was at work when my phone buzzed with an incoming call from her. I debated ignoring it, but something told me she'd just keep calling until I picked up. With a sigh, I answered. "What is it, Lisa?" I asked, already bracing myself. She was crying. "Grant, I don't know what to do. I can't afford daycare for the baby, and I have to start looking for work. I need you to help me out, just a little, just until I get on my feet." I clenched my jaw. "Lisa, the baby is not my responsibility. You have Sarah and Kevin for that. You made this choice, but they can't help me right now." She snapped, her voice thick with frustration. "You don't understand what I'm going through." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my patience. "No, Lisa. What I understand is that you expect me to fix your problems when you don't like the consequences of your decisions. I'm not doing this anymore." There was silence on the other end, then a sharp, bitter laugh. "You really are heartless, Grant." Before I could respond, she hung up on me. I stared at my phone for a second, shaking my head. 5 minutes later, another message popped up, this time from her mother. "I can't believe you would turn your back on the mother of your children. I always thought you were a decent man, but I guess I was wrong. How can you be so cruel?" I let out a short, humorless laugh. Right on cue. Then I responded, even I was surprised when I came to know that your daughter is a bitch who would sacrifice her own kids and family just to get screwed by her brother-in-law. So, stop talking about decency, you old bitch, and stop texting me. It later became a pattern. Lisa hit a roadblock, and instead of dealing with it herself or turning to Sarah and Kevin, she'd try to drag me into it. At first, I would respond politely but firmly whenever Lisa or her family reached out, trying to rope me into her problems. Over time, though, I realized there was no point. No matter how reasonably I explained myself, they would twist my words to make me the bad guy. So, eventually, I just stopped responding altogether. It wasn't my job to bail her out, and I wasn't going to let her guilt me into thinking otherwise. Despite everything, there were moments when I almost felt sorry for Lisa. Every time I saw her, she looked more worn down, like the weight of her choices was finally catching up to her. During one of our custody exchanges, she hesitated before speaking. "Can we talk privately for a minute?" she asked. I hesitated but nodded. "Yeah, sure." We stepped away from the kids, and she took a deep breath, not meeting my eyes. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for everything. I know I messed up, and I know I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. I didn't know how to respond to that." Part of me wanted to tell her it was too late for apologies. Another part wanted to ask why she didn't think about the consequences before she went through with all of this. But in the end, I just nodded. "I hope things work out for you," I said simply. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. I wasn't interested in reopening old wounds. Whatever guilt or regret she was feeling, that was her burden to carry, not mine. The divorce was long, messy, and exhausting, but in the end, I got what mattered most, the kids. The court ruled in my favor, granting me full custody, with Lisa getting visitation rights. It was a relief, but not a victory. No one really wins in a situation like this. It was just the best outcome for my children, and that's all I ever wanted. Lisa fought hard to paint herself as the victim. Her lawyer argued that she had made a selfless decision, that she had only done what she thought was best. But the court wasn't blind to reality. They saw what I had seen all along, that Lisa was unreliable, that she had made choices without thinking of the consequences, and that she had tried to use our kids as leverage to get what she wanted. I sat in that courtroom, listening to her attorney talk about how difficult things had been for her, how much she loved the children, and how she deserved shared custody. And I'll admit, there was a small part of me that wondered if the judge would buy into it. But then my lawyer stood up and laid everything out, the instability, the broken promises, the times Lisa had prioritized herself over our kids. He pointed out how I had been their primary caregiver for months, while Lisa struggled to keep her life together. The evidence spoke for itself. When the judge made the final ruling, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Full custody. Lisa would get scheduled visitation, but I would be the one making the decisions, providing stability, giving them the home they needed. I glanced over at her, and for a moment, she looked like she was about to cry. Maybe she had convinced herself she'd get more, that the court would side with her. But reality had finally caught up to her. Afterward, she tried to talk to me in the hallway outside the courtroom. "I don't want things to be like this," she said, her voice shaky. "I still want to be in their lives." "That's up to you," I told her, keeping my tone even. "But I won't let them be dragged into chaos. If you show up for them, great. If not, I'll make sure they're okay either way." She nodded, wiping at her eyes, but I didn't stick around. There was nothing left to say. Now, it's just me and the kids, figuring things out day by day. There are challenges, sure. Single parenting isn't easy. But for the first time in a long time, our home feels steady, peaceful, and that's worth everything I had to go through. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.